today can go sideways in an instant. What's here today can be gone tomorrow. We live in a world full of uncertainty. Are you ready to survive? This is the weathered soul.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is Bruce, aka here, the Weathered Soul, on the Weathered Soul with Bruce McGee, and we have an episode today called "Why Bitcoin and Why Now?" And I've got a special guest, Shane Hazel, coming on here in a couple seconds, and I just really want to make sure that I welcome you guys all here to the podcast. It's this is what is it? February 20th. Wow, it's February 20th already, and this is episode number 13 of the Weathered Soul, and I'm just glad that you guys are here. Man, so much is going on since the last time that we saw each other about a week ago, when the president had his State of Disunion address that me and Ken Madden kind of commentated and stuff, and I just wanted to tell you that, you know, since the news is so fluid, and why we're doing this show on Bitcoin, and really some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about in the monologue isn't really Bitcoin related, but it kind of goes along that fact of where social media has taken us, and mainstream media has taken us, and all the other things that are happening in the world that are taking us, all designed to get us to put an emotional reaction out there. And when we talk about emotional reaction, we're talking about like the most extreme emotional reactions that we can get, like rage, outrage, you know, all this other stuff that's going on that goes viral. And a couple of things that I just kind of latched on today, and these are all headlines that I took off of Fox News all day today. And the first one would be that Biden announces millions of more taxpayer dollars to assist Ukraine during the surprise tip to Kiev. I woke up this morning and Biden was in Kiev, and the Pentagon says this will be Biden's 32nd drawdown of equipment for Ukraine. I mean, how much equipment does Ukraine need? I mean, really, when you think about it, it really has to do with our tax dollars. It really has to do with money that we don't even really have. Is that related to Bitcoin? It's going to be absolutely when we talk to Shane and we start breaking this down. Household debt skyrockets to the highest level since the 2008 financial crisis. The average household owed a total of $142,860 at the end of 2022. That's outrageous. That is outrageous. That is how much that we are just dependent on whatever we got going on here with the economy that's supposed to be so great. Why are people in such credit debt right now? It's crazy. And then we got inflation. Inflation is persistent, keeping grocery prices high for consumers. Prices for food at home were up 11.3 over a year ago. Well, you know, nothing but that Biden's been saying on Twitter or any of the other social media sites that he runs on is saying that this economy is booming and inflation is going down. But that's not the case. It's really not the case. I know, because I go shopping. I just went shopping the other day. My cart's half empty and I'm still paying, you know, that much, or maybe even 1.5 times what I paid for before. It's crazy. You got Chicago Democrats are sounding the alarm as 55 schools report no proficiency in math or reading. This is very serious. A Democratic Senator, Willie Preston, says the city must examine COVID area policies. Why are we even in COVID area policies right now? The stock market. JP Morgan warns the stock rally will fizzle with the Fed fallout still ahead of us. That's all I hear, is that the economy is so good. How can the Fed be having a fallout? And then we've got environmental issues, like the Ohio senator raises alarm on cancer-causing chemicals potentially spreading from East Palestine. Did you know anything that went on at East Palestine? Probably not. You know why? Because the mainstream media didn't cover it, and we're throwing, you know, tons and tons of PVC chemical in the air right now because they have a uncontrolled fire going on there. It's too weird. Other stuff that can raise your blood pressure is that Whoopi Goldberg echoes Don Lemon's in attacking Nikki Haley. You're not a new generation, you're 51. CNN host Don Lemon said Thursday that Haley is not in her prime. And then you've got Taylor Swift lookalike with over 1 million followers targets Swiftie rage on TikTok, a pathological liar. crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that's going on here in social media and in regular media, the mainstream media. And these things all kind of just are there to spur an emotional response from you to get you guys to react. But it's the wrong reaction to what we're talking about. What they want to do is they want you to rail against the government. I want to rail against the government too, but you know what? Railing against the government is kind of like pounding your head against the wall and accepting the wall is supposed to fall down like the walls of like the walls of Jericho. But that's not going to happen because the government's too strong. They're going to keep printing money and things like that. And the only thing that I know that's going to cure some of this is the item called Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is hard money. It's real money. It's indestructible money. It's programmable money. It's all kinds of money that we can use throughout our lives. And I've got the perfect guy to come on and talk about it. And I'm going to introduce you to him right now. Again, he was on the first show for Weathered Soul when we revamped the show a couple months ago, and he's back now. And his name is Shane Hazel. Shane Hazel, how you doing, buddy? It's good to have you back on the show, man. How's it going?
Great, man. It's good to see you again. Appreciate you having me back on.
Absolutely, dude. It's been way too long. I should have you on every week.
I tell you what, man, if my schedule, I can barely get my own show out once a week these days.
I'm telling you, you've been a busy man from what I hear, man. You've made it to the big time.
Oh man,
But I'm telling you what, man. Every time I look at you when you're on the Twitter, because we're on Bitcoin, I call it Bitcoin Twitter right now, is that you're every place, dude. You're doing this and that and here and there, and you revamped your Radical podcast, which is a really really good thing. I enjoyed it before, and I'm even enjoying it more now. How's things going with you? And that, tell us a little bit about what's been going on with you before we move into the Bitcoin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if I talked to you before back surgery, after back surgery, whenever it may have been, but that was in spring of last year, and really had a lot of things brought very near and dear to me. As you know, it changes your perspective when you can't walk and you have to sit in a hospital by yourself with no visitors and all that kind of stuff because of COVID. And then when you are healing up, you're just happy to have somebody come sit with you and hang out with you. And so some things changed. And as I was just down, I was doing a lot of studying, a lot of reading, a lot of podcasting. And during the course of the last election for governor, the a lot of things kind of just emerge from paying attention and seeing how the system works from behind the curtain, because you get to see some things. And it's just driven me to a point where there's the idea that parties are ever going to fix anything, and that DC is somehow going to be I don't know, reinstituted in a better way for the people. Is I've just kind of lost any hope in that whatsoever. And I gotten to the point where I'm looking forward to the solution of what Bitcoin's going to provide for so many different aspects of our lives here. And it's just taken me, because it's one of those things, because money touches everything that we do. And
Right.
the fiat dollar is this infection it's just gotten into every stinking aspect of our lives. And when that happens, it corrupts, and it corrupts absolutely the to down to the poor people that have to go and be institutionalized by their school. So when when I started to see this solution emerge, I was just like, well, this is our shot at freedom. This is our best shot at doing this. Not only doing it, but doing it as peacefully as possible. And I think that's probably why I've gravitated to it as much as I have.
Yes, as I take in the aspect of what the Fed and the government does, along with printing of this fiat money that's basically worth nothing anymore. I mean, we kind of warned these people back in 2008 that this $1 trillion that they pumped in the first time with all that Fed money and the quantitative easing that they said that they were doing. I knew at that time that 6-7 years down the road, it's going to hit us and hit us hard, and it started to. beginning of the Trump administration. And even though that the administration itself had some kind of a buffer unit to keep it under control for a while, as soon as that lost control, all hell broke loose. And here we are. We quit quantitative easing. Now we're raising interest rates, and now inflation is going rampant on us. We got a recession. We're in a recession now, even though I don't care how much they're talking about
Yeah.
that we don't have a recession going. Dude, we're in a recession.
I'd actually say we hit depression, and it's just time, right? It's like when GDP is either stagnant or doesn't or is in decline, what you have is just time, right? So what is it, 2 years for a recession and 3 years for a depression?
Right.
We started this in 2019, and I don't think most people realize is like this. The first shot that I saw that I kind of called out was Brexit, when the British didn't trust the European Union banks enough to handle the money, to handle the what they were going to be trading, what they were going to be on the hook for, and they were like, "Hey, peace, we're getting out of here." That was the bank. That
Yeah.
wasn't, like as much as they want to, say it was the conservative parties and stuff like that of the UK. It wasn't. It was the bank trying to protect their own sovereignty. And when that happened and Brexit went down, it was late 2019. I was actually in the country when it happened. And I'll tell you, people were very, very worried. And I was like, look, this is a correction. You're going to go through it and you're going to come out better on the other end faster. Because you're not having to deal with bureaucrats that are centralized over in Europe. But that was the first shot. And then they came out and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to lock people down because of this disease that's going around the planet." And you're like, "No, I don't think that's actually it." There's a great video out there. There's actually quite a few videos out there. Paul Krugman, who was Barack Obama's financial, we'll just call him financial czar, because they they don't like to say anything. They like to use communist and socialist terms. So Paul Krugman talked very many times about seriously having scientists come out and fake an alien invasion so that it would spur the economy. And he references Twilight Zone episode where they did it, and they didn't do it to foster global peace, which was what the Twilight episode was about. But he was saying that they wanted to do it to spur the economy. And if you do this and you just replace, COVID with aliens, then you have exactly what Paul Krugman said. And you're just like, huh, I wonder, like, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what they pulled off in 2020, 2021, good part of 2022.
Yeah, it's just amazing, especially the news cycle as it is now. This last month or so, it's just been unbelievable.
Sure.
What has gone on with the Chinese weather balloons and all these other things.
All the false flags,
all the false flags, the psyops, as you like to call them. And it's just amazing, man. And they're trying everything they can to launder this fiat cash that they keep printing, man. And they say, number one, that we're not doing quantitative easing anymore.
Yeah.
But all they're doing now is just shift money around to places that they know that they can funnel money through to get it clean back on the other side. And unfortunately, I think Ukraine is one of them, and of course, Zelensky is right there, is the middleman on everything, and I care less whether this gets kicked off YouTube or whatever. We can talk about COVID or whatever you want to. I don't care. My YouTube presence really doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, I gave you mine.
Yeah. But just amazing to me that like I said, the way the news cycle goes, the way the people are reacting, and it's just amazing how many people are just mesmerized and just following along with this like little sheep behind a false shepherd, man. It's just incredible. And that's why I wanted to have this show about Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin actually is one of those things that kind of gives you hope, kind of gives you an idea that there is something solid out there, that people just need to learn more about Bitcoin. And I got a lot of people coming down on me going, "Oh, well, you're just like this is a religion," and stuff like that. It's just no more religion than the way that some people are following government. It's crazy, man. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's break down the word religion, right?
Yeah.
Religion is a practice. Religion is anything you practice, and but I think probably most of us believe in some higher order, some higher power that we'll just say is the great mystery, and
Mhm.
that Bitcoin is not a great mystery, right? It's like it's open source code. If
Absolutely.
so, I mean, open source code and understanding what that is, and then having some of the absolute brightest minds in that I've ever come across, and that's really saying something. I've known a lot of very smart people in my life. I try to be the dumbest guy in the room most of the time, so that I can learn, right, and like I
Yeah,
can
exactly.
pick up on whatever I need to know. Bitcoin is hope for a lot of people around the world, and there was this great article not long ago, orange pilling the orange pills, right? Like the orange pillars. Like we a lot of times, a lot like libertarians,
Mm,
we don't do a great job at having these conversations with people who don't see the world through our orange lenses or through our libertarian lenses,
mhm.
and it's because we're so damn autistic. A lot of times we know all the damn facts, right? You're not ever going to accuse a Bitcoiner or a libertarian of not having studied, right? Like these guys, they consume more information than most ever will in a lifetime. And so it's this idea that you can kind of present to everybody a problem and show them the problem first and then have the solution there at the end for them. And I think we've seen a lot of this in our lifetimes. We've seen countries around the world that have had their country's currency debased because they were using the Federal Reserve as its base, and whenever we inflate those dollars here, the people who are furthest away from it and poorest around the world pay for it first because
Right.
we melt away any type of real liquidity or any type of value that they have stored. So you look at places like Venezuela, you look at places
Mhm.
like Argentina, you look at the Middle East, the northern horn of Africa, tons of other countries in Africa for that matter. Um, First and foremost, you see these people's cultures changing who are adopting Bitcoin, like El Salvador for sure, but there are
Right.
other countries in Africa because they've seen this so many damn times. They're starting to adopt Bitcoin, and this is hope for them because they know for a matter of fact that their money can never be debased by a foreign power or anybody for that matter, and whatever value they have stored, they get to keep. I think some of the other aspects that we've seen as of late, I guess the Ukraine situation, a lot of people, when you flee a country that's at war on both sides of the border, you're going to run across um, the authorities, and if you're fleeing, they're going to take your stuff. Or if you're coming in to another country, they're going to take your stuff.
Mhm.
If you have your seed words, you don't. It doesn't matter. They can't take your seed words from you because they're either here, or, like
Hidden. Hidden.
your word, and I don't care, how you carry them or what you do in terms of carrying them. Wherever you arrive, your money's with you,
That's
and
right.
that's an amazing thing. And we've seen this firsthand as an example, and I think probably closest to home in 2022 was it no late 2021, early 2022, the trucker protest in
Mhm.
a
Right.
bunch of truckers were like, "Hey, listen, we're not going to deal with this vaccine mandate stuff." So they went down to Ontario, and sure enough, Justin Trudeau and their evil ass banking secretary or minister or whoever she is, she shut down all of the bank accounts of anybody who was around there. They used geofencing and geolocation to do that. And on top of that, when people were giving to these organizations through GoFundMe, they shut down those organizations as well. There's a good friend of mine, his name is BJ, and forgive me, I don't know his last name, but he and a couple of other really solid Bitcoiners went into Ontario and went to different trucks and helped people open up Bitcoin wallets. And
Right.
they funded, I think, over $20 million worth of Bitcoin to these truckers. And that's the beauty of this is they couldn't shut it down. And you heard all sorts of FUD about the Canadian government like hacking these addresses and like blacklisting.
Mm.
all
That
false,
was all
right? Like,
full of shit. All bullshit.
you can't blacklist a a Bitcoin wallet. You can
Yeah,
still trade that Bitcoin with anybody who wants to trade that Bitcoin.
exactly.
And what they couldn't do is they couldn't shut it down, so that they had to take psychological operations to the heirs, and talk about it, lie about it. And at the end, these guys were now changed over to Bitcoin, and it
Right.
saved their bacon in a lot of
In
cases.
a
So
lot of ways, yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of use cases that are emerging right now for people, but I guess that doesn't really get into the technical side of why does it work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. One of the things that really just disturbs me is that, we got all this high inflation and the monetary system is just
Yeah,
kind of going to trash here. But all those other countries, like you said before, who were heavily involved in the fiat scheme from the Fed and stuff like that, like you said, they probably felt it probably 10 times more than we are right now
sure.
over what they had before. And to tell you the truth, I know me and you kind of hang around the same spaces on Twitter. So both of us go to a little place called Bitcoin Cafe every once in a while in the mornings and listen to Alex and the Swan team. And it's amazing some of the guests that they have on there and the stories that they tell about how Bitcoin is just kind of saving some people in those countries that were so dependent on the Federal Reserve and the way that we printed money and the way that they were kind of addicted to that heroin that we were feeding them every time that they needed something. So and then of course, or what was it later on in 2021 and then earlier in 2022 we got hit with these guys, the crypto fraud squad. So I'm
Yeah,
talking about Sam Bankman-Fried of XTX. I'm talking about Alex Mashinsky of Terra Luna and Celsius. These guys really put a hit on what really happened in Bitcoin in 2022. And unfortunately, that hit really, really took a hit on us. I mean, actually, I always been at the right time. and and when you got me into Bitcoin back, I think it was in February or March last year. I bought my first Bitcoin. I think was at 38,000, and then it just dove. And I've been stacking
you're like,
ever
damn
since.
that guy
On
Shane
a
Hazel.
but weekly, every week, I've been putting a little bit more away every week, and I mean, like clockwork every
Yeah,
week, and I'm doing great. To me, I haven't lost a penny. I haven't lost a Satoshi. I haven't lost any wealth. Haven't lost anything. I just keep stacking sats because I know where this is going. People who know where things like this are going, and so what we're going to do right now is we're just going to kind of pop in and I'm going to ask you some questions, and because you know more than I do. Actually, I do know a lot now, but I
oh
mean.
no, man.
I like to hear your storytelling because a lot of your podcast is storytelling about Bitcoin
Yeah,
and people that are in Bitcoin and the things that you're doing. So Bitcoin, hard money, man. Tell us what hard money is because I use that a lot with my friends and they go like, well, what the hell is hard money? Because all they've ever had was a dollar bill in their hand, all they've got,
yeah,
coins, stuff like that. And they're just going like, okay, well, milk is or eggs are $8 a dozen now when they were $4 a dozen before. I'm going like, because we're not dealing with hard money anymore, dude. We're dealing with fiat. So what is hard money, Shane? Give us
yeah.
a little primer there.
If you guys are ready to go to sleep, buckle up. Here we go. so,
No, I've got them riveted to their seats, man. I've got them
yeah.
riveted to their seats right now.
There's a great Austrian economist, one of the first actually. His name was Karl Menger, and he talked about the principles of hard money. A lot of times when we ask questions to people who are not orange pilled, one of my first questions is, "What is money?" And you'll get some people who maybe don't know how to answer that. Some people will say some things like, it's whatever we agreed on for trade, and they're not wrong. But it's definitely not hard money. It may be money, and there might be some sentiment behind it, but that might be the only thing that's behind it. So hard money has at least three principles, and we're going to add a fourth because I think it's very important, and it's an aspect that Bitcoin covers. Because a lot of people will say, "Well, what's Bitcoin, backed by?" Same thing that gold's backed by. It's proof of work, and that's the beautiful thing. So the first thing we got to talk about is salability over time, space, scales. and then proof of work. So saleability is just liquidity. How liquid is an asset? What can you spend it on? So over time, is it liquid? Which means can it be manipulated by interest rates? Can it be inflated in terms of currency, ballooning and all that kind of stuff? And the answer for Bitcoin is no. It's a lot like gold in that aspect, only it's actually deflationary because 21 million forever is not actually the 21 million forever. We're actually probably looking at somewhere around 19 to 18 million, which means we're dealing with maybe one of the first deflationary currencies. And this is a beautiful thing because this is the first time that currency, digital currency or digital anything, was made scarce. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people understand is Bitcoin is a very scarce commodity. It's not a security. It's like gold, but gold is inflationary at 1.5 to 2%. So we actually have
Mhm.
something that's deflationary that will increase in value over time. And that's never been done before, for one. So it's better than gold in that it's that obviously better than fiat because fiat can be inflated to the moon and then back some more, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, Over time and space. Space means how can we move this liquidity? How easy is it to move? Fiat is very easy to move. It's just zeros and ones. A lot of people will tell you it was the first shit coin, first the first digital because right now we've only got about a third of the dollars that are in existence in circulation.
Mhm.
That those are the only ones that exist. Gold was not easy to move around the world, still not easy to move around the world, very costly to move gold around the world.
Right.
And so Bitcoin solves what they call the Byzantine generals problem is you need something that is going to hold its value, that can't be debased, and at the same time can be moved around the world as fast as possible. And so because cash is debased and gold can't move around the world, you're starting to see some of the reasons why Bitcoin is harder money. And then you've got scalability over a population. Bitcoin is one of those things where we can scale Bitcoin over the entire world population. There's 100 million Satoshis per every one Bitcoin. Uh,
Yeah.
they're talking about the new rich being point 0.1 Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Which is
That's exciting, man. It really is exciting because when
is
I thought about it, when I first started getting into Bitcoin and I started asking you questions and asking questions on Twitter, it was all about, hey, I didn't know anything about Bitcoin. I'm going like, hey, how do I do this without, being, Bruce, aka the Weathered Soul who owns Bitcoin.
yeah,
How do I do this on the sly? Nobody would answer me. So then I ran across Bitcoin Cafe. I started pulling in there, and I don't know how me and you got together as far as I was concerned, other than the fact that I did actually buy my first Bitcoin before me and you kind of talked about it, but you got me my wallet, and it was all over by then. But one of the beautiful things that got me kind of turned on about it is I thought I always had to buy a Bitcoin. I
yeah.
thought I always had to have the $60,000 or the $38,000 or the $20,000 or how low it got. I think it was around 16 was the lowest I bought it at. But I didn't know that I could buy a Satoshi. I
Yeah.
had no idea. And I think it breaks down to something like, I don't know how many quadrillion Satoshis that there are
Two
in the
point one
21
2.1 quadrillion. Yeah.
2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. So there's enough Satoshis to go
Yeah.
around the world and back and to Mars and back and wherever Elon wants to take it.
I think it actually averages out if you were to divide it by the human population equally, somewhere I think around 4,000 satoshis a person,
Yeah,
which is really interesting because when you look at, if you can go out for like $5 right now and get 4,000 satoshis, right?
right.
So you would have the average with, very little money. But the really cool statistic that I love is like there's 45 million millionaires on planet Earth. 45 million millionaires.
Mhm.
And when you start to break that down and you go, well, there's 21 million Bitcoin and there's 45 million millionaires, that means that most millionaires will never own a complete Bitcoin because they're going to
Correct.
be a little bit later to the game.
Yeah.
And that's very fascinating to me. It's like, well, we're making smarter moves than a lot of millionaires and possibly some billionaires out there right now.
I hope so, because right now I'm a Satoshi millionaire. So.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it was discounted for the past year. I mean, if you knew what was going on in 2022, man, you were stacking as hard as you
You
could.
are sitting pretty right now, man. And even, like I said, when I first started into Bitcoin, I was thinking, okay, I was going to be, one of these guys. I was buying Bitcoin and Ethereum at the same time. And then I started getting hit with people that knew I had Ethereum and going like, hey, dude, we can come over here and we can, you know, put your Ethereum out on the web, and you can get 20% on whatever Ethereum you had, dude. And boy, thank God you came around, because that's what turned me on to Swan and Alex and those guys. And I'm going like, okay, what's going on? How do I get rid of this Ethereum?
Yeah. Yes.
And I lost. I tell you what, I lost a lot. Not, I didn't lose a lot of money on Ethereum, but I lost some money on Ethereum.
Mhm.
And it wasn't. I hate losing money. One of the things I hate doing.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. I've learned a lot in this past year. It's going on a year now that I've been into Bitcoin. I am happy as what I got. But more than that, I'm happy for whoever I leave my Bitcoin to, because that's what's really going to
Generational
keep
wealth.
driving on. Huh? I'm sorry.
Generational wealth.
Oh yeah, it's generational wealth, and it's going to be generational wealth on this hard money that's going to be passed on to my daughter. When I pass, and it's just going to be, because she's going to be the recipient of Bitcoin and that Bitcoin economy. Because I don't care what anybody says, the Bitcoin economy is going to take, dude. There's no stopping it, and as much as they want to, I don't think they can. Do you got any opinions on that? Any comments?
Well, mathematically, it seems to be a certainty. I don't know what happens between here and there, and I don't think it's going to be easy. I think, right now, a lot of what they want us to do is to get violent. I think they want. I think they want a reaction out of us, and I think the fact that we haven't given them a reaction, the fact that a lot of people, I mean, just yesterday, a multi-party group and a bunch of people who don't associate with parties met in Washington D.C. to say, "Hey, listen, we're not into this war stuff. You got to
Mm-hmm.
knock it off." I think outrage against war is at an all-time high, and that's a good thing. If we get to stay peaceful, we watch this economy burn with less of a fight, and that's a positive thing, because right now what I think they're doing with the Chinese balloons and the quote unquote the Chinese balloons, right? And all the distractions, the derailings, the chemical spills. I mean, UFOs, aliens.
All diversions, all diversions.
All distractions from what's really going on, from like the Nord Stream pipeline that we obviously destroyed. We have proof of it now. The fact that you had DHS and FBI kind of being the belly button for the rest of the government in terms of censoring people's speech. Well, they pulled off a genocide. I mean, this is literally what's happened, and we actually have evidence that it was a genocide, and so th- this is crumbling, and it's crumbling in our faces. And I think everything that we're watching is absolutely, to your point, is a distraction from the economy. It's a distraction from the Fed not being able and not understanding that they've got no more tricks. They're just kind of, if you raise rates right now, you're going to crash the economy. If you print more money right now, you're going to crash the economy. If you don't raise rates right now, you're going to crash the economy, right? And they can't stop it, and they don't have any tricks. And this is what I always tell people is, debt doesn't kill nations, like they used to say. Fiat money kills nations.
Yeah.
And it is the root of all the evil. So yeah, I think Bitcoin's going to come around. I think we're in for, some struggles. I really do. I think we're in for some struggles along the way, because these guys, they keep trying to provoke us. And as long as we're not going to give them the fight, I think we're doing better.
Yeah, I tend to think, when you talked about they want us to act violently, and I can't see where Bitcoin can act violently. I mean, because to tell you the truth, every time that we say that, any kind of gun crimes or any kind of mass shooting or anything that we have going on, the president's first to come out and say, "Hey, we got nukes and we got F-35s and we got this and we got cruise missiles and stuff like that." It's like he's actually going to attack us with these. But I mean, I don't know how in a situation where we're in with Bitcoin that you can act savagely or violently against your government, other than just monetarily, warfare, monetary warfare, which could happen, and then that would be against the central banks and corporations that are involved in the central banks and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess one of the things that we can compare it to, and a lot of people talk to me and they compare this to, because they go, number one, well, Bitcoin's all on the internet. It really isn't nothing. It's really not this. It's really not that. And what about Silk Road? What about that old thing that went on with Tor? I'm going like, and I really, to tell you the truth, I didn't know how to respond to that. I'm
Mhm.
wondering how you respond if you ever get that Silk Road type thing with
Yeah.
that situation,
So
and Bitcoin kind of intertwined with the same thing, and how we can get people to separate that from what it really was.
So Lynn Ulbricht is actually a good friend of mine, and her son Ross Ulbricht is the guy that was behind Silk Road. Silk Road,
Right,
guys serving 2 consecutive life sentences right now for
creating a
for s-
website,
for creating for creating an
creating a network.
alternate economy
Yes.
that ran on Bitcoin that the Federal Reserve and the bankers didn't like, and that's what you get when you cross bankers, right? So, you got guys like with Sam Bankman-Fried, who just lost hundreds of millions of dollars of people, hundreds of billions of dollars. I'm sorry. Now out on bail. So you see who's in power. So when when we talk about, like, what you've said, that this is the dark web. Well, our own treasury has done the research on this, and they've
Mhm.
come out and they've said no, fiat is actually much more likely to be behind things like pedophilia and sex, trafficking, and illicit activity in
Mhm.
general, or what the state deems illicit anyway, especially with drugs and all that other crap. So Bitcoin, in terms of adopters, we don't have that many people in Bitcoin. I think there was actually a statistic out there, it was like 0.01%. So we're very, very early, and you'll be very early for the next 10 to 20 years possibly.
Yeah.
um, with that being said, can you do some shady stuff with Bitcoin? You can. But here's the thing: is Bitcoin's going to be reputation. If you are not a reputable person and you have Bitcoin to trade, there's not going to be a lot of people in the future that want to trade services or products with you if you're not a reputable person that has,
Mhm.
even if you do have Bitcoin. And I think that's one of the really beautiful things about it is the force and coercion is removed from the entire equation with Bitcoin. They can't come take your Bitcoin. You don't have to give it to them. And things like, to your earlier point, is war with Bitcoin has to be consentful. So when you're talking about possibly an uprising against the state from people who are Bitcoiners, what you're looking at is possibly the most well funded guerrilla war that has ever been seen by us in history. And that means, very simply, I think if you boil it down to brass taxes, if you're wearing a uniform and you're still using force and coercion and CBDCs to carry out tyranny, well, I'm pretty sure that that uniform becomes a target very, very quickly for a people that want to be free that are already using Bitcoin.
Right. You bring up CBDCs, and you've talked a lot on your show about CBDCs, and frankly, they're coming. I mean, I don't think there's any two
Yeah.
ways about it. I think it's going to be adopted. I think it's going to be issued out within probably the next 5 years. I would say, uh, probably exclusively. Maybe not starting this in this country, but in other countries, they're going to be shooting them heavily. And so let's talk about before we get to the main question. What is the difference between a CBDC and Bitcoin?
Yeah, so CBDCs are, for the most part, I would say that central bank digital currencies or central bank digital dollars are are centralized. There is a person or a group of very powerful people, much like the Federal Reserve, or the Bank of England, or the European Union, or the Russian Federation, or China, or Japan. Right,
Mm,
all of your central bankers are going to want to have their own CBDCs, and CBDCs just means that they have absolute understanding, control, and surveillance over over their money that
right.
you have, right? And that means if you need to spend it on certain things and not other things, if you want to go places and they don't want you to go places, if you need a loan, you're not going to get loans if you're a thorn in the side, right? It is in through proxy. If you are a thorn in the side, then people who are in your remote family, your friends, your neighborhoods possibly are going to be incentivized to make you very, very uncomfortable.
Right.
So CBDCs are complete control, and like I said before, the dollar is really one of the first CBDCs. There's no difference between a shit coin and a CBDC. They're literally exactly the same thing. Only they're probably issued by the state and not some hapless, MIT grad
Mm,
that said, "Oh yeah, this looks like the perfect thing for me to flex my brain and launder money for the state." So yeah, CBDCs. This is going to be the choice, and this is what it boils down to. You're going to have CBDCs, you got Bitcoin, or you have hard metal. Or what BRICS is doing. BRICS is the agreement that's being stood up by Brazil, Russia,
mm, mhm.
India, China, and Saudi Arabia. And when you understand what they're doing, they're putting together an economy that's based on hard assets, whether it's petroleum, whether it's gold, whether it's platinum, silver, you name it. All of these things are going to be pegged. And, it's a lot like bimetallism, so there's a lot of problems with it anyway.
Right.
So Bitcoin is going to be that choice that everybody's going to have to make out there. I think sooner than later, and it's freedom versus complete tyranny.
Yeah, Alex Danzig keeps talking about on the show. It's gonna be like a Wild West show when everybody starts going like when we start hitting that next halving, it's like everybody's going like, I need to buy some Bitcoin. And by that time, all of us plebs that have been buying at 16, even some of the plebs that are buying down at 3,000 are just
Oh,
gonna be going like,
thank
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, what a better who better to shift power to?
Yeah.
The humble, the guys that have been working, blue collar jobs their entire life trying to get ahead, people that were indoctrinated by the state that are now waking up, that see, the awful, the guys that were in, the military, for God's sakes, that
Mhm.
saw the horrors of war up front, that invested in Bitcoin. Like these guys with some power, with some financial backing to do the right things, to do things that are, a lot more peaceful, and start to stand up and lead again. It's going to be very, very interesting times.
Right, right. Yeah, because I just keep thinking about, all these things that I've got invested in. I've got my 401k I've got invested in. I've got a Roth IRA. I've got the house, my land that I've got here. And then I've got Bitcoin. And to tell you the truth, the one thing that I think is the most stable out of all of those right now is Bitcoin. Whether it goes up or whether it goes down, it's always going to be there. And this property might not always be here. The government can come in and go like, huh, we taking that right now.
We sold this to
Yeah,
China.
yeah, we sold this to China, right? Or, the 401k goes away because all of a sudden they turn your 401k into a CBDC, right? And all of a sudden I can't spend my money on what I want to spend it on. They're already trying to do that right now with the way that they want the investors to invest our 401ks into ETFs that have or excuse me, funds and exchanges that have to do with the what was that the World Economic Forum and
Mhm.
with the carbon based stuff. Just the whole financial situation within this world is going crazy because of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think it really had to do with Bitcoin and why all of this started. So here's the question, and here's the title of the show, what we were going to say. Why Bitcoin and why now?
Boy, why not? I mean, I think I think when you look at the current situation, and I will say this, up front is I'm a homesteader. Like I'm one of those guys
Yeah.
that it is very tangible in life and in practice. And I know you see like the purple behind me, and the god with the 8 arms and things like that. But honestly, I am extremely connected to this earth, and
Mhm.
I will tell you first, in a matter of fact, I hope you have chickens. I hope you have lead. I hope you have, some silver around that you can trade. I don't like gold because people get killed for gold, right? Like,
Right, right.
um,
I'm a silver bug too.
yeah, silver is one of those things, it works, and people aren't like, "Oh, I think I might off this guy and see if he's got any more of that silver." Gold's a different story. But I do tell people, if you've got the means to be in a more rural area away from, masses of people that get very afraid and very
Mhm.
stupid and do stupid things in mass,
That's a fact.
right? Like take care of those basics first. If you have money left, and you're trying to get rid of this dirty fiat, this is just a great time. And I know it's going up at $25,000 of Bitcoin is a steal. And when we look at the valuation of the debt on Earth, or if you were going to buy the Earth, right, in terms of
Mhm.
land, in terms of bonds, in terms of debt, everything that's out there, it amounts to about $900 trillion. And Greg Foss does this so
I love Greg
much better
Foss.
than I do, right? Like, I love that guy. When you look at what Bitcoin is and the valuation of Bitcoin, he talks about it being the most undervalued asset you could possibly own right
Mhm.
now.
Right.
So if you take it to the point where Bitcoin is equal to gold, say a $10 trillion market cap, we hit about 1 trillion, I think, when we hit $50,000 per Bitcoin. If we get up to if we get up to $10 trillion on par with gold as a market cap, what you hit is parity with the US dollar. And then at that point, you're starting to look at something around $1 million to $2 million of Bitcoin.
Right.
Now, there are other guys out there that will tell you, like, we're going to pass gold, and we aren't just going to go buy gold. We are going to fly
So
past gold. You've got a younger generation that is coming up, and you got a boomer generation right now that is starting to die off, and the
right.
transfer of wealth is going to come from the millennial class and the
Mhm.
Zoomers.
Mhm.
So when they see this, and they are going to be very, very comfortable with a digital currency, a native digital currency to the internet, and the adoption curve for Bitcoin versus the internet, Bitcoin's being adopted much faster than the internet was.
Right.
So you're talking within possibly 10 years. If we're going to fly by that $10 trillion market cap and we're going to take on 30, 40 percent of the valuation as a world reserve currency, you're looking at about $60 million per Bitcoin. And that
Yeah.
is absolute. I mean,
That's
you want it.
insane.
It is. It's
That's
insane.
insane.
But here's the thing: is we're going to see something. If we can avoid, World War III here, and prevent these megalomaniacs from nuking us into the Stone Age, where you know we're not going to be dealing in dollars anymore. We may not be dealing in silver anymore either.
We dealing in eggs.
We
Eggs and chickens.
Yeah, the few of us that are gonna be left, we're not gonna have to worry about any of that kind of stuff anymore. It's just gonna be you'll be as free as you can be out wherever you are. But this, like I said, I think this is the most undervalued asset that you could possibly have in an investment portfolio, and a little bit's gonna go a very, very long way in the future, and it's just gonna make you money. So I don't know. You don't have to take my word for it. I always tell people, go read a book. Read Bitcoin Evangelism by Brian
Right.
DeMint. Read everything you can get your hands on by who was it? The Bitcoin Standard and the Fiat Standard, Safadin Amos. The
Mhm.
Bullish Case for Bitcoin by VJ. Man, all of these great books that are out there. There's a ton of just fantastic books. BitcoinNews.com and What is the other one?
Yeah, here's the one that I use here. Let me see if I got it here right. That's not it.
Damned.
There's I've got it wrong, but I use Bitcoin Magazine kind of to get where my
Bitcoin Magazine is great.
yeah, Bitcoin Magazine is great. You read off it a lot and
Yep.
a lot of their updates and stuff, and then that drives you to all these other places that you've just been talking about, and it's a great place to start to find out where where you can be going with Bitcoin. A lot of education there. Swan Bitcoin is another one that I use, especially the Bitcoin Cafe or Cafe Bitcoin in the mornings, which is on Twitter. 7:00 a.m. Pacific time. You can find Shane on there every once in a while. He'll pop in, and Alex gets all excited and stuff.
I get excited because I don't get to do it as much anymore. Yeah, some other great personalities. Just
Greg Foss.
Greg Foss is in there.
God, he's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
he'll shame you. He'll shame you into buying Bitcoin.
Yeah. This is exactly right.
But to my boomer friends out there, because I'm a guy getting up there now. I'm 63, and a lot of the boomer guys that I hang around, because most of my friends, I go golfing with, and they're not Bitcoiners. They think I'm freaking stupid, But I'm just going like, I'm going like, well, what else, man? What else are we doing here? I mean, okay, you can keep pouring your money into 401ks and REITs and this and that. That's working fine for you right now. But that's not going to work fine forever, dude. And it's not going to work
anymore.
And it's not money anymore. Exactly. And it's not going to be money for your children, my daughter, and things like that. So, I mean, what better way to be able to leave a legacy than to leave a legacy in something that's going to be hard money, that's going to be worth something when you're gone? Because believe me, I purely and solely know that I'm just going to be running through all my 401k and all my other stuff that I have, and I'll still have chickens and eggs and my lead and my silver.
And I'm telling you, it's an all of the above thing. And this is one thing I absolutely love. I love seeing generations of people now that are making the switch to lifestyles of homesteading, lifestyles of homeschooling. They're getting out of the cities, and they're even doing some of this inside, the suburbs and cities. And you see it more and more and more all over Instagram and everything else. And I mean, my 74-year-old mother, right? Like, she is really into Bitcoin now. And it's not because, at first I was like, hey, Bitcoin. And she was like, you're nuts, right? It was this over time, that 220 grit sandpaper. And it's just, a little here, a little there. You introduce them to something, and then, before you know it, you're starting to get questions. Right. And now they're like, there's actually some interest, and they go and they do the homework and research themselves. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. Go learn. Just learn. Don't listen to the buds that are, out there on MSNBC and CNN and the rest of it, who don't know the first thing. If they don't know the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, that's the telltale sign that they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That's the huge problem, man. Like I said, I got a real good friend of mine, a software hardware engineer. I asked him about Raspberry Pi, and I wanted to start a Bitcoin node. He's like, oh my God, you don't want to do that. I got friends that lost all their blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, settle down.
You don't know what you don't know, man.
You don't know what you don't know. So, but it's funny, man. Shane, dude, I really thank you for being on the podcast, man. This is really, really cool to have you here and just be a really knowledgeable resource on Bitcoin. And I love it that you're a homesteader just like I am. It fits right in with the website, weatheredsoul.com. It's just great to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and plug yourself? I got a couple of slides here. Here's your newest logo, man. I love this logo. Oh my gosh. When I first came across this logo, I just went like, that's Shane's logo, man. That's so cool. But he also has a website. This is Radical Pod, right? Is that radicalpod.com?
Yep. And I'm actually getting in some new stuff. I mean, everybody's please, if you like it, please come out and hang out. And the space is radical, especially if you want to learn about Bitcoin and homesteading and all that fun stuff. Got some pretty good guests that come on the show sometimes. And I hope to be doing more here in the very near future. Just kind of a time of transition in my life. I'm setting up this project called Brave, and Brave is a post-traumatic stress mission for not only veterans like myself, but for anybody out there who's had who's had real trauma in their life. And I think that's a lot of us who are older people, right? Is like, there's this trauma, and this is a psilocybin based type of post-traumatic stress treatment and mission. And so we're doing some things out here in the North Georgia mountains that are changing some people's lives. So very soon anybody will be able to support that. But for now, anybody who wants to help at Radical. And Bruce, I appreciate you, man. Just so humble. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's always good hanging out with you.
Dude, I love having you on the show. And you can also get me over at Twitter, also known as TWS. You can pay me in Bitcoin if you want to. Go to the Fountain app, and Shane's over there on the Fountain app too, also known as TWS on at fountain.fm. That's how you can send me some Bitcoin if you want to. Better yet, just go over there and just download the app and start listening to Shane's podcast, my podcast, or anything else like that. If you ever want to know anything more about homesteading, prepping, or anything else about permaculture, you can go to weatheredsoul.com. But like I said, this is the end of our show tonight. Again, thank you, Shane, for being here. Can't wait to have you on again. We'll have to do another show on that psilocybin thing and this Brave thing you got coming up, because that's really, really interesting. I got some friends of mine who are veterans, PTSD and stuff like that. I think it would really benefit them. But anyway, thank you, Shane. Again, you guys, it was great having you here. Go leave me a 5-star rating over on YouTube. Give me a comment. Hit me that bell, do whatever you can. Do the same thing with Shane's podcast. And next week, I'll be here with another awesome guest. And we will be seeing you guys later. So take care and bye-bye.